vamos a enlazar con el mero, el gallo de Zacatecas.
That's right, homeboy.
El de Poyá.
You got it, homeboy. Island boy.
Dicen que soy poderoso, yo solo soy su amigo. No hace falta averiguar, saben a qué me dedico. Me gusta vivir muy bien, aunque me siga el peligro.
Nosotros somos los Tucanes de Tijuana y nos vamos directamente. Adelante, échale, primo.
Hay que hacer ruido para que se mire la polvadera. Ahí le va. Mi gente le gusta la neta. Escuche en su carro o en su avioneta. Si prefiere mejor en bicicleta o en casa de su suegra Petra. Sin pelos en la lengua. Sin pelos en la lengua. Sin pelos en la lengua. Se escucha la neta. Hay que hacer ruido. Sin pelos en la lengua. Hay que hacer ruido. Sin pelos en la lengua. Para que se viera la polvadera. Sin pelos en la lengua. Se escucha la neta. Es la neta. Una producción del DJ Mix para el nuevo Imperio Enterprises. Radializando. Sin pelos en la lengua. Sin pelos en la lengua. Es la neta. Sin pelos en la lengua. Sin pelos en la lengua. De gallo. Sin pelos en la lengua. Se escucha la neta. Hay que hacer ruido. Sin pelos en la lengua. Hay que hacer ruido. Sin pelos en la lengua. Para que se viera la polvadera. Sin pelos en la lengua. Se escucha la neta. Es la neta. Una producción del DJ Mix.
You know what I got? I got a picture of his face with the little pillow on, the sleep face. And we're in Chicago.
For more information on the Voice of San Joaquin, go to tvosj.org.
The Voice of San Joaquin and the Voice of Stockton presents Live with Kimberly with your host, Kimberly Warmsley.
Good morning, City of Stockton. I am so excited today. We have two outstanding women in the building on the Live with Kimberly show. As many of you know, but for those who do not know, my name is Kimberly Warmsley, and I am a licensed clinical social worker. I'm here today to talk about real issues, real topics, real obstacles that are affecting our community. Listen, it's going to get really real in here, because we are not only going to talk about the issues, we're going to actually talk about solutions and strategies and opportunities for us as a community to grow together. So, without saying any more, sit back, enjoy this show, and let's get started. So today we are going to be conversing about lupus and medical trauma and how to survive it. We're going to be able to define what lupus is for you. And, as a professional, sometimes I'm not always able to give that centered, person-centered perspective. So what I did was I went on a mission to find two advocates in the community. To my right, I'm going to start with a very good friend and dear-hearted to me, Miss Nancy Hall-Smith, who is a parent partner in the community. And sitting beside her is her daughter, Miss Frankie Quarles?
Quarles, yes.
AKA Team Frankie. So I'm going to allow them to introduce themselves to the platform. So we'll start with you, Nancy.
Okay, my name is Nancy Hall-Smith. I am Frankie's mother. Frankie was diagnosed with lupus at 16 years old. And I became an advocate because when she was diagnosed, I didn't know anything about lupus, had heard about it, but didn't really know what it was. And I had no one to talk to. So I didn't want people to feel what I felt, because I felt alone, lost. And so I started reaching out to other people that had lupus to let them know they're not alone.
Thank you. Awesome.
And my name is Frankie Quarles, and I have lupus. It was hard when I first got diagnosed, and Team Frankie kind of started because of a video. And my caregiver is my mom, and she's literally been there the whole way through. So that's how we became Team Frankie. I have lupus, and my mom takes care of me, and she still does. So that's Team Frankie.
Outstanding. So before we get really embedded in the conversation, I just want to give everyone that's listening an understanding of what lupus is. So lupus is an autoimmune disease where the immune system mistakenly attacks our major organs, like our skin, our kidneys, our joints, our bladders. Any and every organ within our body is not immune to the disease. So from that, there are signs that our body will produce that says, hey, something's wrong. Just before I get to some of the signs, and I want Nancy to really define that as a mom and a caretaker, because I think that a lot of times people are mistakenly diagnosed and are minimize or marginalize some of the symptoms. But I do want to offer some of the staggering statistics. So, did you all know that there are approximately 5 million people worldwide that are diagnosed with lupus? From that 5 million, there's approximately 1.5 million persons who are diagnosed in the U.S. alone. Women of color are 3 times as more likely to be diagnosed than any other community. And interestingly, 90% of persons who are diagnosed are women. Now, I say who are diagnosed very intentionally because, as Nancy will describe a little later, there's a lot of people who are misdiagnosed or are underdiagnosed. So even still, these statistics are staggering. And last but not least, I thought that this was a very good diagnosis. 1 in 250 persons who are diagnosed during times when they're pregnant. So we are seeing the diagnosis become more prevalent in women who are carrying children and are about to give birth. Now, these statistics can be found on WebMD. I usually refer to that when I'm looking at diagnosis, whether it's medical and or mental health, but I wanted to share with the community these diagnoses because it's staggering. So with that being said, Nancy, I wanted you to really give a good, thorough explanation of what are signs and what are symptoms.
Oh, wow. The first symptom that Frankie had was light marks on her face that came out during the summer months. It was just a small patch that was scaly, and it would usually show up usually around your mouth. Also, a butterfly rash, and a butterfly rash is a rash that it's across the nose and across your cheeks. It's usually purple or red. Aching joints.
Yeah.
Burning muscles. Was that your main signs? Tired, very tired, a lot of fatigue.
Right. Frankie, do you want to chime in and if there's something Mom missed?
Well, when I first was diagnosed, like months prior, before me being diagnosed, I was a competitive cheerleader, so I would always go to practice, and it just started I was always aching. I started coming back home. I'm like, dang, practice is really killing me. I'm like, we're working really hard. But then my hands started just swelling up, and then I'm like, we're doing stunts and stuff, and I'm like, I can't move my hands. So I'm like, my mom's like, maybe we should start taking you to the hospital. But then after that, my back started to hurt, and I'm like, we're flipping and doing all this. So I'm thinking like, cheer is really putting like a toll onto my body. Still, like, it was just the aches and pains. When I was going hospital to hospital, before I was diagnosed, and all the doctors would tell me, oh, there's nothing wrong with her, she's fine. So it was just this one night that I couldn't get out of bed, and it was so weird. Like, I was just in bed, and I'm like, I had to go use the bathroom, and I was just like stuck. And I just remember like calling my mom. I'm like, Mom, but I'm crying, and I'm like, I can't get up. And so I'm a person that kind of wants to do everything myself. And my mom's like, can you get dressed? And I'm like, who wants to? I don't want you to dress me. So I like forced myself to get dressed. So when we get to the hospital, they're running all these tests and everything like that. But I was able to still move. I finally got to the point where I'm like struggling to move, but I'm like, I don't need you to walk me to the bathroom. I don't want to feel handicapped or anything like that. And the doctor finally tells my mom, well, I think you just should send her to school. I would send my granddaughter. Like, basically, I was faking. So when I get to school and they look at me, they're like, I don't think you should be here. I'm like swollen, face swollen, hand swollen, couldn't walk really. So like they kind of like assisted me through like school, like saying that I could get to my classes a little later. My mom picked me up from school after, and she kind of rushed me to a doctor, and they were closed, and my mom was like begging, like, can you please see my baby, please see, something's wrong. And then the doctor just touched me, and I'm like, ouch, like that hurt. She doesn't even have to touch me, but I'm in so much pain. And she's like, this is juvenile chronic arthritis. I'm like, like every joint. And I'm like, huh? That's
from
for
the
old
bottom
people.
Of her feet to her opening her mouth.
My jaws, like in my mouth,
would hurt.
Like chewing and like normal stuff, you know. Right. And I'm like, that's for old people. Like thinking, you know, I'm like, I'm only 16. Like, what do you mean? So then she tells me go get my blood work done, and she called my mom like the next day, and she was like, I have to, when she got my test back, she was like, I have to send you to UCSF. And from then, that's kind of when I started learning more about this word lupus. You know?
Right. And I think that, you know, in this conversation, you know, we can't limit the narrative here, okay? There are so many people who are misdiagnosed.
Absolutely.
You know, and it's kind of, as a practitioner, it's disturbing, to say the least, that we have people who are, you know, crying out for help, and they're being misdiagnosed. And so as parents, I'm sure Nancy has worn this hat like till the wheels fell off, right? Being an advocate and asking questions is crucial. Absolutely. You know, and sometimes, you know, being labeled as like being the drama queen, or, you know, shaming signs and symptoms is unacceptable. And so, Nancy, can you talk about some of the struggles of being a champion in advocacy for your child? Like, what has that been like for you?
Oh, it's a struggle.
I told you it gets real in here. It gets really real in here.
Oh, man. I can go from day one, when that doctor told me that nothing was wrong with my daughter, and maybe she just didn't want to go to school. Mm-hmm. Even though her fingers were swollen, her face was swollen, you can look at her and see something was wrong. But because her numbers came out right, because they run a base blood test
your
every
levels,
time,
right.
your levels every time you go to the emergency room, she was faking. So that has been a huge issue during the whole time she's had lupus. I have to say, she was blessed with some amazing doctors. Shout out to Dr. Lawson at UCSF.
UCSF.
Rheumatology.
Love that. Love it. Love it.
But when Dr. Lawson wasn't there, and
Yeah.
Frankie's symptoms are she has the butterfly rash, her joints are hurting, her muscles are burning, but her numbers are coming out fine. So the doctors would say she's okay. If we go to the emergency room, Dr. Lawson, what she started doing is having us call her no matter what time it was. And she would tell them what tests to run so they can check the levels that are supposed to be checked.
Right.
And that would help. It's been many a times that we would go to the hospital and they would get ready to send her home. And when those test results come in, we would be in the ambulance from Stockton, Lodi to UCSF.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So again, I have to say her pediatrics team was amazing. Now being an adult, things are different. She has different doctors. And they go by numbers. Frankie has always had pretty good numbers, but she has had chemo because her kidneys are bad. She's always in pain. It's times when her muscles are burning or they're tight and they're aching, and she wants me to massage her, but I can't because her fibromyalgia,
Right.
her nerves, I can't touch her.
The sensitivity to touch
And
makes it
yes,
hard.
And doctors don't see that if your numbers are fine. All they see is a patient, and I hate to say this, but a patient that wants pain medicine. That's how they look at you. Right now, Frankie she's sick. Having issues with her back, issues with her muscles burning, issues with her skin, and her numbers are fine. So let's just give her prednisone, but it's not helping for everything.
It's like a Band-Aid to the actual illness. And it's sad for me because, knowing you as a person, yes. I know that you're very strong-willed and you have the capacity and capability to advocate.
Yes.
My heart goes out to those who cannot.
Absolutely.
Those who do not have the executive functioning or capacity, or even the trauma that this has caused. And as everybody knows, I'm a therapist, and so I cannot not talk about the trauma, right?
Absolutely.
So how does that make you feel in this whole process of being underdiagnosed, misdiagnosed? Your voice is not being heard, and when you're requesting and or expressing something that you're feeling, you're not looked at in a stern and real way. And so that's traumatic, and I think that as someone like Nancy knows, Nancy has met my aunt, and my aunt has lupus and has had lupus ever since I was like 16 or 15. And I was a care provider for her. And I didn't even know what it was.
Right.
How we are educating families on medical issues is traumatic. It's like, oh, you have lupus. See ya.
Take a pamphlet.
Here's a pamphlet. Moving right along. But that's grief and loss.
Absolutely.
Having a diagnosis at, how were you, Frankie?
16.
16. And when someone says, okay, we're diagnosing you with lupus, you're like, what the hell is that?
Yeah.
Like, what does that mean for me, and the longevity and the cross combination of fibromyalgia and lupus, having that simultaneously, what to do and what not to do. Mm-hmm. Do you guys feel like you were prepared in that way? Not only the medical piece, but the trauma and the distress. And having like two different homes, because Absolutely. You're in San Francisco, hospitalized for how long? how long was like the most that you've ever been hospitalized at one time?
Yeah, a month. Probably.
So hospitalized in a month in San Francisco.
Yes.
You live in Lodi.
I live in Stockton.
And you live in Stockton. And then you have other children, other family obligation, working. Like, how did you do that?
I had an amazing husband. I had an amazing husband that when I was in the hospital with her, I didn't have to worry about, I'm blessed. I was blessed. I didn't have to worry about going to work. I didn't have to worry about taking care of the kids at home. I didn't have to worry about anything but Frankie, because I had a support system at home.
Right.
And most people don't have that. Most people have to go to work to provide for their family. Most people are doing it alone. So for me, I can just say I was blessed, and it's not the norm of what someone gets. That
goes back to having that executive functioning,
yes,
and being able to advocate and being able to say, "Hey, hold on,
yes,
you need to see my daughter. You need to see my daughter now."
Absolutely.
And that's what I'm like, quiet, and if I tell you I'm in pain, I feel like you should understand I'm in pain. Right. I don't feel like I need to. I don't know how am I supposed to act when I'm in pain. Just believe me. But my mom was always my voice.
Right.
And I meet a lot of lupus patients, and we all act the same. Like, we're just normal, and we're quiet. We're not gonna be like, oh, I'm in pain. We're just like, we're in pain. This is our normal. So if I'm used to something, like I wake up every morning, my mom says, how do you feel? And I'm like, fine. But my fine might be bad, but I'm used to it, and I just deal with it.
So
but
you've normalized.
Yeah,
some of it.
It's my normal now, and that's why even when we do go to the doctor, I'm like, she's my voice. My mom's like, no, you do this, let them. And a lot of people don't have that, and it's kind of sad.
And I think one thing that I will say as a social worker, like not being in your shoes, but looking in the lenses outside of your shoes, is how many times do you tell your story? You know, and then, you know, you're going to a multitude of doctors stemming from 16 to now. And 16 was just a diagnosis, right? So even before then, like, telling your story over and over and over and over again, that in itself is traumatic, because you're probably at a place where you're like, you should know.
You should know this.
You should know. Like, I done told you about 50, 11 times. Like, how many times do I have to let you know? And that in itself is traumatic, because you're kind of reliving it over and over again.
Yeah, that's why when she speaks to now, I'm like, it's still here. This is still my life. And I don't realize how much it does bother me until we do talk about it.
Right.
And I'm getting so emotional. But like when we do speak about it, I'm like, this is still my life. Like, I do have good days.
Right.
But I think I have more bad days than I have good.
Right.
And I try to enjoy my good days.
Right.
You know, but it's just, when we talk about it, it does bother me a little bit.
It brings stuff up, you know. It brings things, emotions and feelings up that you probably don't even realize that you have, you know. And you know, we kind of had a mini conversation before this conversation, but this conversation is still a good conversation. But I always say, Frankie, we don't talk about it because we don't understand it, and we don't understand it because we don't talk about it. Yes. And so this is, and I'm not saying like this is the only opportunity that you have had to be a champion and a voice for change, because I see you and I see your mom, like, you know, continuously and talking about the issue. But we have to talk about the issue in order to change the issue.
Absolutely.
And for you being so young and being a champion, like at 16, I didn't even know. I was like just put into a role that I had no idea of what I was doing. Right. And to see you out there really championing this issue is just, it's beautiful. It's beautiful, because a lot of people don't do that. And so, you know, I just want to give that to you, so you know that these conversations are not in vain. And even for Nancy being a parent, like, it's hard enough being a parent. Absolutely. And juggling every day, working and doing the family thing and doing the child thing, And now you have to add being a champion.
Thank you.
For your children. It's
Absolutely.
hard. But that's the purpose of these platforms, is to talk about it, you know, to normalize it.
Right.
Because
and it's something you said, being an advocate for yourself. Speak up. When the doctors tell you and they're not listening, speak up. Take a notebook with you. Take that doctor's information
all the time.
Write down exactly what they said. Research yourself. Research your own symptoms.
And
nobody knows
ask
you.
those questions.
Absolutely.
When you come back, go to that doctor, say, "This is what can you explain this to me? Because this is what I've researched." You know
Absolutely.
what I mean? Asking that would bring the facts.
I always say, write down, no matter what doctor's appointment you go to, write down 10 questions to ask your doctor. Write down when I tell her when she's having pain, you write down what your pain is and what time, because you learn yourself. When you're able to go back, you might have to go back a year before and say, wow, I didn't realize I was dealing with this at that time. But you have to be your own advocate, and you have to speak up. You have to talk about it. People tend to, lupus is a disease that you don't see.
Right.
So you think there's nothing wrong or a person is faking. You have to ask yourself, who wants to be sick?
Mm-hmm.
Nobody.
Mm-hmm.
Who wants to be in pain? Who wants to not be able to do normal things that the normal person takes for granted?
Like Frankie was explaining, cartwheels and flips, and, you know, doing or engaged in activities which are designed for kids.
Or walking.
Yeah.
Or picking up. I remember when she was, I don't even know if you were diagnosed yet, or if she tried to pick up the iPad.
Mm-hmm.
An iPad, and couldn't. She was too weak. The things that we take for granted every day. Breathing. She was pregnant with Malcolm. And she started having breathing issues. This was her breathing pattern while she was walking.
Yeah.
We go to the hospital and UCSF, and her numbers are fine. So this has to be pneumonia, because her numbers are fine. Even though when they ran the x-ray and the inflammation in her lungs were spread across as if it was a sprinkler of inflammation had ran across her lungs. That pneumonia grows in a cluster in a lung.
Right.
But because her numbers were fine, it could not be her lupus. It had to be pneumonia, and they gave her antibiotics. Sent her home. She's still having the breathing issue. It helped a little bit. We go back because nothing's changed. They did another x-ray, and she took all of her antibiotics, and it's exactly the same.
Right. That's a misdiagnosis.
Big misdiagnosis.
Right.
This is their exact words. I'll never forget this day. Well, we're just, we've realized that the antibiotics that we gave her, it also helps with inflammation, and she did not have pneumonia, even though I told them this, because there was no symptoms saying she had pneumonia. We're going to say it's her lupus. But luckily, you're surrounded by a room full of experts, and there was 9 doctors in the room at that time. And that's when I had to pull out my notebook, because these doctors have been dealing with her for years. Well, if I'm in a room full of experts, why am I back? Because I told you 2 weeks ago that it was her lupus. But now I'm going to run everything down to you that we've been going back and forth for, because you guys have been misdiagnosing her. She's staying in the hospital for 3 weeks, and you guys aren't doing anything that needs to be done, because you guys are saying it's not her lupus until you guys run every other test, and then, okay, it's her lupus. So I'm going to push. If you parents, listen to your children. I am guilty of not listening to Frankie when she came home and told me her muscles were burning. I thought she didn't want to do cheer practice. Listen to your parents. Listen to your kids.
Right.
Speak up for your kids. Doctors don't know everything. Lupus is an autoimmune disease that attacks people in different ways. One person can look perfectly fine, not have any joint issues, and they're having kidney issues, lung issues, liver issues, and there's someone that can be in a wheelchair that cannot walk, but they don't have any organ issues. So you have to listen, learn, research.
Take the opportunity to speak with your doctor.
Absolutely.
I know when I go, my doctor will take the patient before me because he knows that I like to talk a lot. And I'm going to ask some questions and research. I love that suggestion, Nancy. We will learn a lot from our kids if we take that time to sit back and listen. And again, similar to emotional distress, everything about lupus is inside because it's our organs, and you can't measure that by looking. It attacks, and I think that one thing that I do want to really emphasize in this disease is that it also, the joints being attacked is a continuum. And I loved how Frankie correlated it to arthritis, which is another misdiagnosis. So taking time to really assess yourself and write things down, because when we catch it in the beginning, the greater chance of stability and recovery and healing is there, versus catching it 10, 20, 40 years from now. Like, take action. We need to care about our bodies and our minds before anything. Make that a priority.
Absolutely.
In everything that we do. And last but not least is talking about it. Like, we will learn a lot if we just sat down and really talked.
Absolutely.
And when people talk to you, don't marginalize their symptoms. Don't minimize their symptoms. Don't shame them because they're speaking to you about how they feel, whether it's medical or mental health.
Absolutely.
Let's just be perfectly frank. We don't do enough of that. And so I appreciate this time.
Oh gosh, I'm glad you said that, because the mental. I ask Frankie this question every day. Frankie, how do you feel?
Fine.
How has lupus affected you mentally or emotionally?
I think bad, but I try to be regular, normal. But then I notice when I'm like, why am I not? I was super outgoing and everything about me was just alive. And then this point in my life where I'm not that girl no more. And I know I was 16, but I'm 22 now, and I think like, what happened to that girl? And I always remember when they said, "You have lupus," me and my mom sat there and we cried. And I really didn't know how my life would change, but so much stuff started happening. I think when I did get diagnosed, I started getting sicker. I was in the hospital, not every month. It was a stay. And I didn't realize how it was affecting me until I was like looking at my friends. I'm like, they're having fun and I'm in this hospital bed. And that, I never wanted that to be my life. But I appreciate life more now, and I just remember when I had to I was 16, but I was a fly 16-year-old.
Right. Just for the record.
I was.
Okay, let's get that situated first.
I was fly.
Right.
And then it was a point where my kidneys started being, like, they became really bad. And I'm in the hospital, I'm getting kidney biopsies, I'm doing MRIs.
At 16 years old?
Yes, CAT scans. And I'm like, what is all of this? And I'm like, this is not normal, but my mom was always there, and we always laughed, and we kind of made the best of every situation. And then I came to a point where my kidneys were so bad, I had to start doing chemo. And then I'm like, okay. They kept saying, your hair's going to fall out. It might fall out. It might not. So I'm thinking, like, dang, really? I'm like, ooh, I don't know. I'm kind of like the popular girl at school.
Right.
My name kind of ring bells. I don't know if this is going to, I don't know. And I was kind of blessed. My friends, I had some group of girls at Bear Creek, and we call ourselves the Fab Five, and they were my rocks still to this day. They supported me. They lifted me up. They made me feel beautiful when my hair fell out, and I appreciated that, And a lot of people don't have that, but here I sit here cry, and I realize how sad I am about it. The weight gain, like
your face.
I gained like 50 pounds in like 4 months.
So the self-image and the self-confidence.
Yeah, and I'm thinking like, dang, this is not me. I wasn't, not saying I wanted to be this. I don't expect my body to be this 16-year-old body forever, but I wanted my 16-year-old body to kind of stay there for a minute before let me change my body, not this medication, not things I have to go through,
The process,
and
right.
I just think like when I do talk about it and I sit back and I think, and I'm like, maybe I am sad, maybe I am depressed, maybe there's something there, but the thing is that I got a family that loves me so much, and this is my life, and they support me, so even if I am sad, I really don't, it's just there, I guess, I don't know.
Well, I think it's important that, opportunities to process those feelings. Because you have a right to feel that way, especially, and I won't reiterate this enough, Nancy, being an adult and having to understand, I'm not going to tell you my age. Not going to tell you my age, and I was pretty fly back then too. But being an adult and hearing that makes me feel a certain way. Okay, so I can't even imagine being a 16-year-old and having to hear the term chemotherapy, having to hear the term kidney failure, having to hear these terms and how I would process that, right? And like I was telling Frankie, being a caretaker of someone who had lupus, I didn't even understand that. It was like I felt like I was being dropped in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean with like no life jacket,
right?
And so we have to do a better job in educating our girls, our youth, our community members of what that means and how to survive it. Right. You're a survivor, and I think that your story can help level and level people up and help them understand it. But please do your part in self-care and externalizing how you feel, because you got a lot that you've internalized in that.
Can I speak on something else?
Absolutely.
Fat shaming, makeup shaming, hair shaming,
victim shaming,
period. You see it so much on social media. I want you guys to know you don't know what people are going through. Makeup. I see so many, she looked like this before she had makeup on, and this is what she looks like. That's not right. All of those things. But can you imagine being 16 years old or even an adult, but you're sick? No one may not know you're sick. You might not even know you're sick.
Right.
But you have spots and blemishes and different things going on with your face. And people, when they see you and you're not wearing the makeup, they look at you and they don't say anything, but you get that look. What's wrong with her or what's wrong with him? And then when they wear the makeup, you guys bash them for covering up, which you guys have already bullied them about. Hair. My daughter's hair stays short because she has bald spots in her hair, like the size of quarters, going through her hair. Stop shaming people because you don't know what they're dealing with.
And furthermore, you don't know how that makes them feel.
Absolutely.
Because suicide rates are at its highest more than ever. And we are seeing the effects of the bullying and people trying to take their lives. Stemming as young, I mean, I've seen kids at 9. I've seen kids at 10. You know, there was a case in Sacramento where a young boy had a decatheter. And people were bullying him because of that, and he took his life.
Absolutely.
Recently, Kim Kardashian came out, and I hate that I'm using her as an example, but I was just thinking about her psoriasis. Did you guys see that clip she did with her psoriasis? Yes. And people were like amazed about how they looked. But then when you look at how much makeup she uses, this is why. Because I think that she's probably fearful of what people would say or how people would treat her. But yeah, we need to do a better job at that.
Absolutely.
Because let me tell you something. Did anybody hear these statistics? Because no one is exempt.
Absolutely.
From that possibility of being diagnosed. And or having a family member. So if you're not diagnosed, you may have a family member who's diagnosed.
Or who never gets diagnosed.
Or who never gets diagnosed.
Because it's very hard to get diagnosed with lupus.
Yeah.
The ones that have been diagnosed, they're blessed.
Yeah.
And that's for you to say that you're blessed to get diagnosed with a disease.
Right.
Wow. Because they're able to know what's wrong with them now. But what about the ones that are going to the doctor still in pain and being told that they're not?
Absolutely. The ones who don't have a mother who's a champion and an advocate.
Yes.
The silent
sufferers,
right? Because they don't have the insight or capability to ask questions and hold their doctors accountable.
And that's why I started the Team Frankie Walk, because everybody doesn't have a mother like me or a sister or a cousin or a friend. Team Frankie is the voice for everybody that has lupus or suffering or think that they have it. Start talking about your issues. And if you don't feel like, oh, well, my family just doesn't understand, we do.
Right.
Give us a call. Team Frankie Facebook page. We're here. We have support group in Stockton that they actually stopped because people weren't showing up. Come to the support groups and you will have someone there that's dealing with what you're dealing with. There's always somebody there where you're going to leave feeling better because it's not just you. You will get information from other people that are living with lupus, living, thriving, not just surviving.
And also filling your tool kit up so that you're able to go to the doctors and ask these questions and be able to advocate and champion for your kids.
And I have to say, L for Lupus Foundation.
L for Lupus.
Oh, man.
Yes.
Amazing foundation. If you don't want to talk to me and Frankie, you can call and get counseling. lforlupus.com. Get on there. They give counseling. They help lupus patients clean their homes, pay their bills, walk their dogs, go to doctor's appointments with you. Make sure you have transportation. They will come sit and ask questions that you may not know to ask because you haven't been diagnosed. You don't know everything. So L for Lupus Foundation. Please look on lforlupus.com if you think you have it. If you don't feel comfortable talking to someone, call them.
Right. So speaking of L for Lupus, let's talk about the 3rd annual Team Frankie Lupus Awareness Walk, and it's a color walk. Oh my God! Tell us about this a little.
Well, this walk just started when my mom's like, "I'm about to do something for my baby."
That's right.
And the first
Pain
walk,
to power.
she planned this walk in 30 a month, and it was like a beautiful turnout. Like we had so many people there. It was so many people with lupus and their supporters, and it just felt good. A day that we can, we feel love. Like, oh, there are people who understand us and stuff like that. The color walk. It all started because I got pregnant with my baby, and my mom said, let's do like some color, like make it more exciting. And I don't know if you guys ever been to a color walk. It's happy, and it's good to feel good. Like, it's time we want to feel good.
Gives you a sense of belonging.
Yeah, but this walk is just for us to support one another. It's called Team Frankie, but it's literally everyone. Like, everyone who has lupus, this walk is for you. Like, it's going to be amazing this year. I don't want to tell what's going on. But
it's there to know.
Yeah.
You gotta be there to know.
It's going to be amazing. And I'm so excited that we're alongside with L for Lupus because of what they do.
And
support,
how they've helped you.
Yeah, the support system that they do and what lupus patients need, we need that. And a lot of foundations, like big lupus foundations, it's like, who can donate the most money? And it doesn't go I don't know where it got. I don't know. But the fact that they're really hands-on, that's what we need. So I'm excited.
So June 8th, 2019, which is the first week of June, from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. And you can catch us at Victory Park with all these color schemes. I'm looking forward to that. Hashtag Team Frankie, mother and daughter duel. We're very excited for you, and keep us posted. So
we will.
I appreciate your time, and just wanting to give some other recognitions of what's going on in the community. I hope that everyone can join us this Thursday at 7:30 at Edison High School. We are having, as you both know, I have my own trauma and recovery services, Kimberly Warmsley's Therapeutic and Trauma Services, 31 North San Joaquin Street. We're doing a vigil for the families of the victims of the unfortunate circumstances over the weekend. So we are going to have a prayer vigil and support. Myself and, of course, Stockton's finest, Tashante McCoy Ham, will be in a building with the Angel Mothers. And I can't say Angel's Mothers in Spanish. I did get a D in Spanish, so please excuse me on that. But I think it's Gov. ¿Cómo está español?
De Angelas.
Oh, there you go. That's that part, what he said. They will be in the building as well at 7:30, holding a visual for the families who were affected over the weekend, as well as providing those resources. So if you can join us, that would be great. Also, Live with Kimberly. Yes. So we are going to be moving to weekly conversations because this is just this platform and speaking the truths about real life issues and real life obstacles that people endure, either medically or emotionally, is so important. So
absolutely.
I thank you for your transparency and being able to normalize this disease and how you can thrive and survive. Absolutely. Any last thoughts before we close out? Any last thoughts?
Go ahead.
Okay.
She loves to talk.
Again, be your own advocate. Also, Team Frankie is here if you guys need to talk, if you need to cry, if you need to laugh, whatever you need, we're here. Also, lforlupus.com. If you need any help with any lupus services, because not only is it for the person that has lupus, it's also for the caregiver. Very important, amazing services. Please look on lforlupus.com. And I hope to see you guys all at the walk June 8th, 2019.
Let's go.
Victory Park.
Let's go. And Frankie, any last thoughts?
Take care of yourself.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah.
I always say take care of your mental. Like,
absolutely.
I need to talk about it more because I always cry a lot.
Yes.
I don't even know why I cry, but I realize it does still bother me because it's still my everyday life. So I think that's why we do need a support group.
Yeah.
So
absolutely. And join me at my trauma services. Yes. I do offer free healing and recovery groups every Friday, free to the community from 9 to 10:30.
Great.
Follow us on The Voice of Stockton. Sponsorships. The Voice of Stockton is currently looking for sponsorships. We are a nonprofit, so everything that we do is free. However, sponsorships continue to help us thrive. So if you want to sponsor The Voice of Stockton, please do so. This platform is so important to the community in ensuring that people within the city is aware of services and are aware of issues that are affecting our community. So don't forget to like The Voice of San Joaquin, aka The Voice of Stockton, on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Please follow us. And also hashtag KWTTS, which is my trauma services, because without that, I don't think it would be a me. Right. So with that being said, that concludes my 2 every other week run with Live with Kimberly. I hope that you will be following us every Monday at 10, effective in April. All right.
Yeah.
Thank you, everybody. Bye.